Good morning, members. The Standing Committee on the Interior now come to order. We are here today to resume public hearing on Bill 40, an act to amend various statutes with respect to energy, the electrical sector, and public utilities. The panel presenter will each have 7 minutes for their presentations, with the remaining 39 minutes reserved for questions from members of the committee. Now, we have one in-person and two virtual presenters today. Since our in-person presenter is not here, we will go to the virtual, and we will start with Toronto Metropolitan University.
Communitech. He's the only one right now.
Oh, Communitech is on ready? Yeah. Okay, so we will start with Communitech. Matthew Clausen.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning.
Committee members.
Please identify yourself and your title.
My name is Matthew Clausen, and I'm the Vice President of External Relations for Communitech.
Okay, go ahead. You can start. The floor is yours. You have 7 minutes.
Great, thank you, Chair.
I will notify you when we get to the last minute.
I'll be brief.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair, committee members. Thank you for this time this morning. I want to begin by thanking the clerks for their flexibility and back and forth around scheduling. I had hoped to be there in person today, but please accept my regrets for attending virtually. That being said, there's a whole world outside of Toronto, and I'm proud to be joining you today from Kitchener in Waterloo Region. My name is Matthew Clausen. Like I said, I'm the Vice President for Communitech. We're an innovation hub located in downtown Kitchener. Started in 1997 by some of Canada's most significant leaders in technology and entrepreneurship, with the same vision that we hold today: to make Waterloo Region a globally competitive tech ecosystem anchored by homegrown companies that start here, scale here, and stay here. If you've not been out to Waterloo Region recently, I would encourage you to visit. It will put in stark clarity the importance of the conversation we're having today. But don't take it from me. Meet with the technology founders and their teams who are at the very frontier of adopting and commercializing disruptive technologies, namely artificial intelligence and quantum. What makes our community unique is our approach to entrepreneurship. Not just research for research's sake, but a focus on real-world problem solving across areas like healthcare, cybersecurity, and manufacturing. I'm delegating today in support of Bill 40's focus on both data sovereignty and economic development as components of how we think about our electricity system. We should not merely be as thoughtful and deliberate about our data and technology as we are about the trade and production of traditional goods, but more so. For most of us, controlling our data is about privacy, and that's a good enough reason in and of itself. But for governments, I think there's an additional imperative. If you look at the bulk of indexes like the S&P and their growth, it's big tech stocks. You can choose the acronym FANG, MAG7, MANGO. The direction of the arrow is the same, as is its impact on Canada's relative competitiveness to the United States. We think it's prudent that Ontario has the tools to be intentional about the use of our grid, namely the infrastructure that supports our data and artificial intelligence tools. To describe the importance of this approach, I'd like to take a step back and discuss federal policy. Earlier this year, Prime Minister Carney committed that the new Major Projects Office would help to establish a Canadian sovereign cloud. At a macro level, this is an important and necessary development for our country's national and economic security. At a more micro level, I try to put myself in the shoes of a founder, of an employee or a student in Waterloo's tech ecosystem. What does the commitment to a sovereign cloud mean for me, how I build my business, or how I think about scaling and growing in Canada? Given the current legislative landscape, it doesn't change the equation. If we make no value or economic judgment around data infrastructure and we don't prioritize the procurement of Canadian technology, then we simply repeat the past. This is why this current window and this current legislation is so important. Chair, I would encourage the committee to think of Bill 40, as well as the newly introduced Bill 72 or Buy Ontario Act, as having the potential to help make this sovereign cloud real and tangible for Canadians and for those who are building technology in our country. Bill 40 sets out the context to intentionally develop the next generation of Canadian data infrastructure, just as the AI opportunity is truly beginning to explode. This is a necessary step if we want companies to build their technology on this infrastructure. Unfortunately, this isn't just a case of build it and they will come. Entire generations of builders have grown up on American cloud technology, and these are so often the tools of choice for our world-leading talent pool. And I don't think that's a cause for judgment. These same tools have been the vendors of choice for multiple levels of government, large corporations, they still are. It takes concerted efforts over time to change inertia. Deliberate steps must be taken if we want to ensure that our best and brightest are building solutions and companies on sovereign infrastructure, and that it is economically rational for them to do so. This is where Bill 72 has the potential to be complementary. If implemented correctly, it could not just support the procurement of Ontario-made goods and services, but of our technology, and make it more compelling for Ontario founders to design solutions for domestic markets and the broader public sector, sectors like healthcare, education, municipal services, the big buyers. If we can change the culture within the broader public sector, we help to change the brand of the broader public sector as one that supports domestic innovation. That's how we collectively help to ensure the next generation of Ontario founders are building companies that scale and stay here, that you and my data, their intellectual property, it all stays in Canada. This may sound like a lofty vision, but Bill 40 and 72 reflect the necessary posture and intent that we must start taking around our data and our sovereignty. In closing, I'd like to remind committee members about their standing invitation to Waterloo Region's nation-leading technology ecosystem, and to reinforce our support of Bill 40's focus on data sovereignty and economic development as components of Ontario's electricity system. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you very much. Now we will go to our second presenter, the Ontario Home Builders Association. Please identify yourself and your title, and you have 7 minutes to deliver your deputation.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Scott Anderson. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Ontario Home Builders Association. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee, and thank you for the opportunity to present this morning. I'm on behalf of the Ontario Home Builders, who represent the builders, renovators, and developers who deliver the homes and communities that Ontario requires. I'm here to speak this morning in support of Bill 40. One of the major themes in Bill 40 is securing affordable, reliable energy for future generations. From a housing perspective, this is critically important. The cost of living in a home, whether owned or rented, is increasingly shaped by energy bills. And the delivery of housing is shaped by energy servicing. And when the energy system is uncertain, slow, or constrained, the housing system experience has the same problems. When the energy system becomes more affordable and predictable, housing becomes more affordable and predictable. Bill 40 recognizes that Ontario needs a long-term, stable energy plan and that electricity demand will grow significantly in the coming decades. Planning accordingly is not just an energy issue, it's a housing issue as well. Across the sector, we regularly see delays caused by energy servicing constraints, whether that means transmission congestion, distribution capacity, or local utility bottlenecks. Bill 40 takes a meaningful stand to address these challenges. It modernizes and strengthens Ontario's long-term energy planning framework. It streamlines regulatory approvals and provides clearer procedural tools for the OEB. It improves the ability to plan, fund, and deliver new transmission. It ensures that planning bodies consider economic growth and job creation, which aligns directly with the needs of new housing construction. And it clarifies municipal franchise processes, which reduces the potential for unnecessary delay. And these improvements matter. They mean more predictable timelines for subdivisions, more certainty for multi-unit and rental housing, and fewer surprises that drive up costs or delays getting shovels into the ground. Each year, thousands of new homes are delayed because servicing capacity does not arrive in time or because approvals move more slowly than the speed of construction. Bill 40 strengthens the Ontario government's ability to plan and build the infrastructure required to support these growing communities. From our sector, these changes improve servicing certainty, timeline predictability, cost stability, and the confidence to proceed in new housing supply. Housing supply hinges on the availability to coordinate land use planning with energy planning, and Bill 40 moves Ontario toward a more integrated, transparent, and forward-looking model. Builders are delivering increasingly energy-efficient homes, more EV-ready homes, more heat pump-equipped homes, and buildings that are prepared for future clean tech integration. And Bill 40's emphasis on electricity planning, clean generation, hydro development and long-term system expansion is welcomed. And at the same time, OHBA supports an all-of-the-above approach to energy. While electrification will grow, other energy sources, including natural gas, continue to play an important role in providing reliability, affordability, and flexibility for homeowners, for renters, and particularly during periods of extreme weather or peak demand. Our position is simple. Ontario's energy system should support consumer choice, support affordability, and maintain flexibility as technologies evolve. And Bill 40 helps set that foundation without closing the door on future innovation or other energy options. Bill 40 explicitly recognizes economic growth as an objective at energy planning. This aligns with the role of the home building sector, which plays a role in supporting hundreds of thousands of jobs, driving billions in economic activity, creating local supply chains, and building communities that attract investment. Ontario cannot grow its economy without growing its housing stock, and Ontario cannot grow its housing stock without strong, reliable, and affordable energy infrastructure. And Bill 40 ties these systems together. A growing economy requires a growing housing supply, and a growing housing supply requires affordable, reliable energy infrastructure. Embedding economic growth into economic planning aligns these priorities and supports the conditions that are needed to build homes faster and more affordably. By modernizing the regulatory framework, supporting transmission investment, and ensuring long-term sustainability, this legislation helps create the conditions for sustained housing delivery across the province. In closing, OHBA supports Bill 40 because it's rooted in the same principles that we drive in the housing sector: reliability, affordability, long-term planning, clarity, and growth. As the government moves into regulation and implementation, we encourage continued attention to ensuring energy planning and housing and planning remain aligned, maintaining consumer choice and system flexibility, ensuring cost impacts on homeowners and renters remain manageable, strengthening coordination among utilities, municipalities, and provincial agencies, and keeping approvals timely and predictable so that housing projects can proceed on schedule. Bill 40 provides a solid foundation for meeting Ontario's future energy needs, and in doing so, it supports the ability to deliver homes Ontario families need. Thank you for the time this morning, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Now we move to our third presenter, which is Toronto Metropolitan University. Please identify yourself, your title, and you have 7 minutes to finish your deputation. Go ahead, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Mohammed Lashmi, and I'm the president of Toronto Metropolitan University. I'm here because Bill 40 represents an important step in modernizing Ontario's approach to managing electricity demand from large, energy-intensive facilities. The bill creates a new category of specified load facilities, which includes data centers, and establishes a framework that will guide how these facilities connect to Ontario's grid. This is a very significant development. Ontario's approach to regulating high-demand data facilities will shape the province's economic and digital future. At Toronto Metropolitan University, we believe that universities play an important role in helping Ontario prepare for that future. This is done by supporting innovation, protecting privacy and security, and developing the talent Ontario will need in the decades to come. Our purpose today is to highlight why a large-scale, domestically controlled AI data center must be part of Ontario's future, and why the regulatory framework established through Bill 40 is essential to make that possible. Where our data is processed determine where economic value flows and who control the benefits that come with it. First, large-scale Ontario-based AI data center is essential for economic competitiveness. When AI processing occurs outside the province or outside Canada, a substantial portion of economic value flows elsewhere. Domestic data centers keeps that value here in Ontario and strengthen our innovation ecosystem. Second, this is about privacy and public trust. When health, financial, and other sensitive data crosses borders for AI processing, it becomes subject to foreign legal frameworks and vulnerabilities. A Canadian-controlled data center allows us to safeguard this information under Canadian privacy standards as Ontarians expect. Third, data sovereignty is a national security requirement. A secure, large-scale Canadian facility is foundational to ensure national security is in an increasingly data-driven world. To fully realize these benefits, we must also prepare the people who will build, operate, and innovate within this infrastructure. For that reason, TMU recommends that part of Bill 40's consideration that we reserve up to 5% of the data center's compute facility for the training of students and academic research. Through a partnership between TMU and private sector collaborators, this capacity can be shared across universities in Ontario and at the national level, giving students hands-on experience with advanced AI systems. This builds the workforce Ontario and Canada will need for decades to come. In short, an Ontario-based AI data center built in alignment with Bill 40 is more than an infrastructure investment. It's an economic strategy, a privacy safeguard, a national security requirement, and if we include dedicated education capability, a national building asset. This is why TMU is strongly in support of Bill 40, and we believe that its passage will lay essential groundwork for Ontario's AI future. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you to all presenters for your input. Now we will move to the first round of questioning, and we will start with the government side. MPP Cazzetto.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank all three presenters here today. But I would like to ask my question to the Ontario Home Builders Association. I'm in Mississauga Lakeshore, and I have two of the largest developments happening in the province, the Brightwater development and the Lakeview development, both on Lake Ontario. One used to be the old Texaco refinery where my father worked in 1953, and the other one was the old power plant, the coal power plant that used to produce electricity, which was closed down 24 years ago when Elizabeth Whitmore, a former progressive conservative minister of energy, closed down the coal plants, and that was the transition of getting rid of coal in our energy grid. How important is energy affordability for both the future home owners moving forward?
I would say it's actually critical. Energy powers homes. We need all forms of energy, and we also emphasize the importance of consumer choice. At the same time, when builders, like you mentioned, Brightwater and others, when they're looking at developing these master plan communities, they have to look at all costs going into that. Every cost that a builder incurs, whether it's in the early planning stages through site plan approval, whether it's through the energy forms that are ultimately going into the development, all of those costs find their way to the ultimate cost of the home. Builders are very conscious about making sure that prices match the affordability parameters of their customers. So they are looking for every opportunity to make sure that it balances consumer choice with something that is affordable at the end of the day. The energy costs drive the ability for builders to build homes, particularly if that energy source is not available at the time that they're ready to move into the construction phase.
And so what do you think of this Bill 40 that we are presenting here today?
I think it does two main things. One, it really emphasizes the need and the opportunity for all energy integration as their integrated planning going forward. The other thing, of course, is on the availability or the possibility of helping to keep prices down. When we're looking at, again, I emphasize consumer choice and builders being able to meet the needs of their ultimate customers. But when you look at our ongoing support for electrification, but when gas currently is 40% of all energy sources going into residential construction, and it is provides 4 times the power that electricity does, it's going to take a lot of electricity sources to be able to offset that. So we're very conscious as that integration, as that change over time happens, that we make sure that prices remain manageable for consumers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, MPP Gallagher Murphy.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, thank you to all of the presenters this morning. My question is directed to President and Vice Chancellor Mohamed Lachimi of TMU. Thank you very much for being here this morning virtually. Going back to some of your comments here about data centers must be part of Ontario's future because where the data is being processed, that's where the economic activity is. And if it is not being processed here, that economic activity goes elsewhere. So you talked about privacy and public trust. And I do believe that as a government, we need to ensure that we are instilling it, and this is what Bill 40 does. Because you're right, it does lay the groundwork for the future of AI, and we want to be a leader in the AI sector. So my question to you is, how specifically is TMU supporting the emerging sectors such as clean energy, AI, cybersecurity, and advanced manufacturing? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Member of Legislature. You talked about the economic consideration, which is very important. I can tell you if AI processing is happening outside Ontario or outside Canada, we risk exporting a substantial portion of economic value with each digital transaction, potentially in the range of 20 to 30%, which is quite high. I think Ontario has a lot of advantages with the ability of creating those data centers here. And your question about the role of our university, of course, we are in an area that is important for Ontario, our sector. I'm talking about universities. We are preparing the talent for tomorrow's, for the future of Ontario. And I think all the areas that you mentioned are extremely important for the economy of our province. Of course, artificial intelligence is important, but also cybersecurity and other areas. And our university is very active in those areas in collaboration with the private sector, but also in collaboration with the province, with the government of Ontario, but also with the federal government.
That's great, thank you. And I know you made a comment of up to 5% of the data centers should be reserved for training students. Could you quickly comment on that further?
I think it's important for us to give our future leaders the ability to be trained using those facilities. And our recommendation is to reserve up to 5% of data centers compute capacity for training of high qualified personnel, including, of course, students, graduate and undergraduate students, and also for academic research.
Thank you, Mr. Lachmi. The time is up for the government side. We will move to the official opposition, MPP Glover.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you all for being here. It's a really important conversation because it is setting up the future of our energy system and our data system. Let's see, I'll start with a question. I'll let Mr. Lachmi from CMU to continue with this. I've been to TMU. I've toured the DMZ zone there, and so TMU is one of the global leaders and one of our university leaders in developing technology and entrepreneurs. How could you mentioned the 5% of the data centers should be available to students? How would that benefit the students at TMU who are developing, working in the innovation centers?
Thank you very much for your question and for your comments about what TMU does. Of course, we are known to be a university that's focusing on entrepreneurship and innovation and all the areas that are important for the future of our province and our country are important for us to prepare the next generation of talented people. You mentioned what we do with the DMZ, which is considered as one of the best university incubators in the world. We want to prepare people not only to seek jobs, but to create jobs for our city and our province. And I think areas of artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and other areas that are fundamentally important for the economy of the province, we need to push more. And for your information, we have a National Center for Cybersecurity that is located in the city of Brampton. We are actually now leading an effort at the international level in partnership with a Canadian company. We have created, with the help of the federal government, a center of excellence to train people on cybersecurity in South Asia. And the center of excellence is located in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. So those are examples where we want our students, our innovators, to lead in areas that are super important for the economy.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I fully agree. I used to be the colleges and universities critic, and I toured most of the universities and colleges in Ontario, and I saw these innovation centers at just about every one of those colleges and universities. They're partnering with local businesses. They're helping to develop technology that those local businesses can then take to market and improve their own business practices. But one of the challenges is that our public colleges and universities, we have the lowest funding per student of any province in the country. We're at about $10,000 for university students, whereas the provincial average is $17,000. What would TMU be able to do if you had funding raised to the provincial average of $17,000 per student?
I mean, TMU, in collaboration with other universities, are always working with the government to talk about the importance of investment in post-secondary education. And I hope that we can see some good progress in the future, because I know that the Ministry of Colleges and Universities is working now on a project that I think will define a new funding formula for universities and for colleges. And I'm very optimistic about the work that we do as a collective organization with the government.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay. I'm going to move to, let's see, Mr. Anderson. So I appreciate your work here and your expertise in this. I used to build log houses with my uncle. It was very, small scale, one house at a time, and we just plugged into the grid that was existing there. But, we're trying to build 1.5 million homes in Ontario. What do we need in terms of grid expansion in order to be able to accommodate those 1.5 million homes?
In terms of being able to accommodate rapid growth, so right now our market is not in a great state in terms of economic conditions. It is not promoting the ability to build homes at a price that most consumers can afford. So what we're looking at is large-scale developments. There's a term called mega projects, which is 3,000 homes or more or 3,000 units or more being constructed. This requires some significant planning in terms of capacity. There's 64 utilities across the province, natural gas through Enbridge being one of those 64. So you can imagine the amount of integration that needs to be done to accommodate this. So it requires a lot of advanced planning, it requires accurate forecasting, and it requires the support of the resources that are needed. So the planning
1 minute
and the
left.
discussions that going into this are significant. We believe that this bill actually pushes the need for that type of integrated planning. This is something that we, as on the home building industry, have been calling on for quite some time. There's been far too many situations where a builder receives the municipal approvals to proceed with the development, but their own municipal utility is unable to provide the energy capacity. So these discussions earlier will help.
Okay, thank you for that. I didn't know there were 64 agencies. That's really, quite shocking. I'll just very briefly, I've got like 30 seconds left. I'll just say I wish we'd stuck with Ontario Hydro as one public utility in this province. We were paying 4 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity, and we never had these kinds of issues and these kinds of, planning issues when we had that. And now we're subsidizing a private for-profit corporation $7.1 billion to keep our rates at 16 cents a kilowatt hour. So
Thank you, MPP Glover. The time is up.
You.
We move to the third party, MPP Sue.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Thank you to our witnesses. I want to focus on seeing if we can improve the bill that we're looking at today. And first of all, I want to say that I agree very much with the witnesses from Communitech and TMU. I think that having sovereign data, sovereign cloud is really, really important. I think AI is an area that's attracting enormous amounts of investment. In fact, it's the largest demander of investment dollars around the world, and it's going to transform all sorts of things. So with that in mind, if you look at the specified connection requirements in the bill, so this, if it's in front of you, it's Schedule 1, Section 7, Subsection 5. It's about the requirements and what kind of criteria would be considered in putting together the regulations for connection. And at the moment, the bill as it is currently, it only lists economic development and job creation. And I feel that we should add data sovereignty, innovation, competition. So my question for, I guess first for Matthew from Communitech and then for Mohammed from TMU, would you support supplementing economic development and job creation with explicitly data sovereignty, innovation, competition? So it's clear we're not talking about building some more highways, that we're seriously considering a very, very transformational sector of our economy and our future that we have to think about when we're deciding connections to the electricity grid. So we'll start with Matthew.
Yeah, thanks to the member for the question. I wouldn't want to compete with kind of other sectors in terms of economic development. So, what's in there in terms of, is it economic development? Is it innovation? I think we're broadly supportive of the spirit behind that. I think how you get to that and how you define it is probably another question. You may have seen some of the chatter online about how you kind of define what is Canadian. And so I think it's really important for us to think about that. And I would also encourage the committee to think about kind of what are the guardrails around that, so that we're very, very deliberate, because, there are lots of companies too that will say that they're doing innovation, right? We see some innovation washing around where people say, oh, we're doing innovation, and they're not. Or where they say they slap Canadian on the end of the company that they represent and say that they're Canadian. And I think we probably need to think quite thoughtfully around how you define that and how you enforce that. And so, I guess I would. Oh, sorry, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, because I only have a few minutes. I guess my question is: the bill is silent on all these things that you've said. Why not put words? Why not substitute productivity, or why not include productivity? Because productivity speaks to innovation, competition, all all these good things. So, like right now, the bill is silent on everything that you brought up. Why not put something in about innovation or competition or sovereignty?
Yeah, so my understanding, and I would be happy for the member to correct me if I'm wrong, is that there are opportunities for, I can't remember if it's the minister or some sort of designated authority to direct what that actually means in practice. And so I think if you're, ensuring that there's flexibility there to identify those needs as they emerge and change, then absolutely. I guess with all of these, I think there is some subjectivity in terms of how we address it, right? Data centers aren't necessarily in and of themselves the largest job creators out there, right? And I think so the reason is partly about the jobs, right? But it's partly about what you're building and the capacity you're developing with the data centers themselves. I don't know if that makes sense.
And maybe I could go to TMU now. The bill as it is now is silent about the concepts that you brought up, data sovereignty, innovation, competition. Why not, instead of just mentioning economic development, which could be, the example I gave, highways. Highways are fine, but I really believe what you said today, that it's really important to talk about AI and where we need to go with that. Would you support adding something explicit in the bill around innovation or competition or productivity or data sovereignty?
I will leave the details of the bill to MPPs, but I think my intervention here was very clear that economic consideration is extremely important, but we need also to address data privacy, data sovereignty, and national security. And I added to that the importance of talent development. I think it's extremely important that what we are proposing here is to make sure that we have.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry.
I only have a minute left, so let me go to the Ontario Home Builders. Is this bill perfect, or is there an amendment that you have in mind to improve the bill?
One of the things that we see as a positive about this bill is there's opportunity to get into the specifics through regulation. As one of the most highly regulated industries in the province, let alone across the country, we find sometimes that over-regulation, over-legislative reach stifles innovation. Where we find that there is the greatest opportunity is where there is the most flexibility on how we approach this. When we're looking at 24 mega projects currently in the province, each one of them is unique, each one of them is different. I would be cautious about thinking that one size would fit all. So where there's flexibility to be able to
Thank you very much. The time is up. That concludes our first round of questioning. We will start with the second round. We will go to the government side. MPP Pensona.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the presenters for being here today and taking time out of your busy schedules to be part of this process. Our government is all about building homes and growth and looking after our provincial economy as well as the Canadian economy. My question is for Communitech and Matthew. What opportunities do you see for local companies because of Bill 40's commitment to buy Canadian procurement? And I know you touched a little bit on it, but what do you see that for the local front?
Yeah, thanks to the members. So certainly there are a number of energy companies and clean tech companies that we work with in Waterloo region, doing really impressive things to manage how the grid is deployed, how we're managing energy systems. I guess I would say the larger thing for us and for our ecosystem is the intent around supporting local, supporting Ontarian, and what that means, I think, for the culture of government and for the brand of government. I think too often what we've heard across Canada is that companies have to go to other markets to scale. And the challenge with that is then there's always that alluring pull of a bigger market of venture capital that sits somewhere else that wants you to move and with you, bring your IP and bring your jobs. And so we're supportive of measures that ensure that companies can grow and stay and scale here. And I think there's, some real low-hanging fruit, particularly in this time of trade tensions with largely the United States, but across the world, to think about how we can support Canadian companies and how the broader public sector can be, not just a customer, but one of the best customers for companies, and thinking about their growth, validating their products, right, reducing some of the procurement timelines, and making sure that they can scale and grow here, because it's our view. We're obviously quite biased in Waterloo, but it's our view that we only close the productivity gap by having technology firms that are homegrown and can scale.
Well said. Thank you for that.
MPP Vickers.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the presenters for coming today before us and giving us your insight on Bill 40. My question is to Mr. Clausen also. Other jurisdictions like Texas, British Columbia, and California have also introduced measures to manage the growth and impact of data centers. What are your thoughts of Ontario taking similar steps to these other regions?
Yeah, so we're part of I'm part of a peer group with some similar American organizations where we contrast and talk about different policy and technological developments that we see within our communities, and try to glean best practices and things that we can do. And I guess what I would share with the committee is that the way that American jurisdictions think about their data infrastructure and their data sovereignty as an economic tool, and about their energy sovereignty as an economic tool is very telling, I think, for the way they think about economic growth in their economy. And so certainly supportive of Bill 40 in the way that it, I think, somewhat aligns with that sense that we do, live in a world where there's some, coopetition at times, or just, all out competition. And that we need to be, much more robust and aggressive, I think, about how we protect our grid, but also protect our intellectual property, protect our jobs and our talent pool.
Okay, thank you.
MPP Dawi.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to all the presenters for being here. My question is for Mr. Lashmi from Toronto Metropolitan University. I know that universities can play a very strong part in ensuring that collaboration with industry can deliver results. And we know that from an academic perspective, Bill 40, I'd say, opens some doors to further cooperation with industry. And one area that I've seen used successfully across the sector is where pieces of equipment and the research activities that develop new technologies can be shared between many, many businesses with the university as the host. So I'm hoping you could explain a bit for us how you see your ability at TMU to collaborate with businesses and governments throughout the province on future energy innovation.
Thank you for this very important question. I think it's fundamental for universities, and I'm talking on behalf of TMU here, to give opportunities to train the next generation of leaders in collaboration with industry partners, because that's the best thing you offer to them, hands-on education and training, and prepare them to use advanced technologies to be able to be ready for careers. And I think that's the bottom line at TMU. We offer experiential learning opportunities to every student at our university. And this bill is extremely important because it opens the door for those opportunities to work with industrial partners in areas that are super important for the future of our province.
And thank you, Chair. With the remaining time, through Chair, hoping you could describe TMU's activities right now that you might want to share with us, projects that you're involved with.
I mean, we have collaboration with a lot of industry partners. I mentioned the example of the center that we lead, Center for Cybersecurity. We have collaboration with the government of Ontario, with the government of Canada, but also we have partnerships with
Thank you very much, Mr. Lachmi. Unfortunately, the time is up for the government side. We will move to the official opposition. MPP Glover, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you all for being here. I'm going to focus in this round on intellectual property and developing and maintaining intellectual property in Canada, which has become such an urgent issue with the sovereignty threats and the tariff threats from Trump in the States. One of the things that bothers me as a Canadian is that we develop incredible technology here. We have an incredible talent pool, but our talent pool often gets drained down to the United States, and our technology gets bought up by foreign corporations. We saw, Corel was a global leading company for a long time. It got swallowed up. RIM got surpassed. How do we, and I'll start with, with Mr. Clausen from Communitech. How do we both develop and protect our data sovereignty and our IP in Canada and in Ontario?
Thanks. Thank you to the member for the question. It's been a while since I've heard Corel reference. So
and you don't even have any gray hair, so.
I've got a couple there, just on the temples. So I think there's a couple things. Certainly, and the president talked around a number of the opportunities that exist. I think we find for us that one of the great opportunities when thinking about protecting our intellectual property is giving it that path to grow and scale and stay, right? Or the founders and the owners of the intellectual property. So certainly, there's a number of programs that specifically help founders and their teams to protect and to manage their intellectual property. Intellectual Property Ontario. There's an IAC Asset Collective. NRC runs a program. We also have partnered with ISED federally to run an intellectual property program. And so I think those programs are very, very important. I think also thinking about how do we make it so that it's easier for companies to stay and scale here is the big unlock.
How do we do that? How do we make it easier to scale and stay?
Yeah, so there's I'll write a dissertation someday and you can read it. It's a long answer, but I think the first part I'd start with is contracts, right? I mean, I think that's the really big opportunity is that Canadian companies can see buyers in this country. And they often do in certain areas, but certainly the experience that we've heard, and sometimes this is selling into the municipal sector or a large enterprise, that a company will kind of have to go to the United States to prove themselves, and then will have to come back, rather than being able to say. And I was with the City of Kitchener last night, and they run some fantastic programs to encourage partnerships with startups within their operations. And was commending to them some of the work that they do to not just run a pilot, but to actually give a contract to local startups that the startups can then parlay into another contract across Ontario or into the United States, and having that kind of brand there, but also understanding that a city like Kitchener has done the due diligence allows that sales cycle to be shrunk and then to de-risk that for that next buyer. So
okay. Yes. No, I've heard that from a number of tech companies that I've visited in my area, and they constantly say that one of the big challenges is that we need a government procurement policy that supports and favors local businesses, because if you can land a government contract here, then you've got the stability and the credibility to market outside the country. Is that your experience as well in the companies you deal with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's if you go abroad and the question that you get is, okay, does your local government or local large employer support you? And the answer is no. Then you get the kind of why not. And so certainly we were pleased to see, I think, that the Prime Minister announced a Buy Canadian policy in the federal budget. We were pleased to see Bill 72 and some of the opportunity there announced last week. And then I think there's lots of low-hanging fruit as well at the municipal level. So there's certainly a window and a moment here for kind of all levels across the broader public sector to think about supporting domestic innovation. And I guess I used this last night. I would offer some tech speak and say that we probably need to kind of 10x our creativity, 10x our speed, right? If we're really gonna do this well.
Okay, thank you. let's see, I'll go back to Mr. Letchme from TMU. And I'll give you the same question. So how do you're developing an incredible talent pool of innovators at TMU. How do we keep them in Canada?
But thank you so much for the question. I think it's important that we work hard to keep them in Canada, first of all, by providing them opportunities, opening market for them. And I would go in line with what Matthew has mentioned. We should always encourage
1 minute
or adopt the approach of buy Canadian first. And I can tell you at the beginning of what's happening to us because of the policies of the President of the U.S., we have actually at the DMC implemented a new approach encouraging people to buy Canadian first. And we have seen some fundamental shift in the mindset of people. The second thing, I think it's important when Matthew mentioned, of course, we have a lot of startups in our ecosystem, but I think it's fundamental to help them grow. So scaling up is important and provide them opportunities also to have access to funding. And I think that's another aspect because a lot of startups, they go to the US because they need to grow and they need funding. But I think we are seeing a big shift here.
Thank you, Mr. Letchme. The official opposition time is up. We move to the third party, MPP Sue.
Thank you, Chair. I want to get back to the bill and the detailed examination of the bill that we do in committee stage. In Schedule 1, which concerns the Electricity Act, and Schedule 3, which concerns the Ontario Energy Board Act, there's language about support for economic growth. And let me just read out the phrase. Support for economic growth consistent with the policies of the Government of Ontario. And my concern with this is that sometimes the policies of the Government of Ontario are not explicit, and that causes uncertainty for investors, for business. And it could change when the government changes, but sometimes it's just opaque. I guess the famous example is the Premier got into some trouble because he said one thing in public about the Greenbelt and then was videotaped saying something different in private, and that caused all sorts of headaches for the Premier later on. So my question for all of you is, I think that the bill should require that the policies of the Government of Ontario be written down. So, for example, instead of just consistent with the policies of the Government of Ontario, we have consistence with the policies of the Government of Ontario as specified in regulation. So it's written down somewhere so that businesses, investors can have a little more certainty and less risk, which is always good for business. And so I just want to ask each of you in turn if you think that is needed or not. Just specifying, because it's not just economic growth that's in the bill. It's economic growth consistent with the policies of the Government of Ontario, which can change or be unclear. So we'll start with just on screen with Communitech, and then we'll go to TMU, and then Ontario Home Builders.
Yeah, thanks to the member for the question. I mean, I guess I would defer to the members around the committee and then the legislature about where the province of Ontario should, provide its economic priorities. I mean, I think that's often laid out in the budget or on the MedCap website. I mean, it's certainly we're a regional innovation center of the province of Ontario, and so we're certainly aligned with the province's growth and approach to economic development through that framework. Whether it needs to be outlined in a specific bill or in regulation, I mean, I understand the kind of the intent. I think similar to one of the other presenters today, worry that if everything has to be an explicit list, that you miss some of the opportunities and fast-moving opportunities that exist, particularly in the areas of technology.
I guess what I'm saying is not that the government provides a list in the bill, but that it's told to write it down somewhere, and the regulation is a place. If I could go to TMU, Mr. Lakshmi.
Sorry, as I said before, I leave the details of the bill to members of the committee. However, what I think is fundamental is that the Bill 40 provides essential support for economic growth by, in my opinion, creating a more dynamic, competitive, and investment-friendly environment in Ontario.
Okay. All right. I hear what you say. I do worry a little bit about, we're writing legislation for this government and future governments, and you never know if a future government will just not get it and have a different view. I will now go to the Ontario home builders.
Sure.
Mr.
So
Addison.
I'll come at this solely from a housing perspective. The direction in the bill, or the statement in the bill about economic development, where it attracts industry, which means it attracts jobs, which means those people who are being brought in need a place to live, consistent with the policies of the government of Ontario. In our belief from the housing industry, if that statement had been in effect 2 years ago, we probably wouldn't have needed Bill 165, where the OEB was acting inconsistently with the intent of the government of the day, and they had to legislate the OEB to make sure that natural gas continued to be an option for consumers. So from our perspective, when we look at statements consistent with the policies of the government of Ontario, we welcome that statement, because whether it applies to municipalities, to a regulator, to industry itself, it means that we all should be rowing in the same direction.
Okay. Looks like I have about a minute left. There's already a competition, and I can see it in my riding of Kingston and the Islands in the city of Kingston. There's a competition
1 minute
between demand for electricity from industry, manufacturing in particular, new concerns that come to Kingston, looking to locate there, from housing, which we need to build a lot of, and the public sector, like we need a new hospital, which will be an extremely large consumer, and Queen's University has a supercomputer proposal that will require some power. So there's already this conflict. And I guess what I wanted to ask you is, it just seems to me like we should be writing down something to help decide which to prioritize. Because housing might lose out.
So respectfully, the difficulty government sometimes has is trying to have all the answers to be able to write it down in something that is explicit. When we look at what the principles of Bill 40 and the potential for regulation that's
Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. The time allotted for this panel is up. Thank you to Mr. Anderson from the Ontario Home Builders Association. Thank you, Mr. Lakshmi from Toronto Metropolitan University, and thank you, Mr. Clausen from Communitech. So that concludes our session, the panel for this morning. The committee will reconvene at 3 p.m. today afternoon. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.